Good morning, gentlemen. Karibuni sana. Now, a quick look at the headlines this morning, and if we could start with the Star. Kenya sucked into South Sudan graft probe. Juba leaders accused of looting billions of dollars from coffers. That story is on page 2. And South Sudan's political and military elite have siphoned money from their country and bought rather expensive assets in Nairobi and other capitals within East Africa. This is according to a new report commissioned by actor George Clooney. On the Standard, women now at the heart of new suicide bombers plan. Probe reveals fresh terror strategy as Islamic leaders condemn use of women in attacks. There's details of the 3 women terrorists who attacked Mombasa police station on Sunday continue to emerge as police arrest 3 more suspects yesterday. Then on the Daily Nation, we have feeder tries to change law on family wealth. Lawyers tell judge to strike out section which says that property should be shared out based on each spouse's contribution, claiming this disadvantages the women. And I want us to start with this, the headline on the Daily Nation. And it's also on page 10 of the Daily Nation. And the Federation of Women Lawyers wants a law changed in terms with regard to how matrimonial property is shared after divorce. Yeah. And if we could look at the highlights on page 10, the order that FIDA wants in this case is that spouses should share matrimonial property equally at the end of their marriage, irrespective of their individual contribution. Now, the law as it is right now, they want the court to order Attorney General to publish a statement, a statute, Miscellaneous Amendment Act, deleting the offending section in law. They want the amended law should be published within 30 days after delivery of judgment. Now, a quick look at the story. Women lawyers have gone to court seeking changes to a law that outlines how family property should be shared when couples divorce. Basically, they're saying that the law as it is right now is infringes on the right of women, because they say probably they're not able to contribute in terms of wealth acquisition from a family level. So when they divorce, they're disadvantaged when you say they're not able to prove their contribution in terms of how the matrimonial property was acquired. But Namuluka, this is a very sensitive area to venture into.
I think let's have that debate, and let's be as broad-minded as possible as we have the debate. To start with, I think there's a fallacy. That fallacy is that women contribute very little to family wealth. And within it lies the fear that they are going to be shortchanged. In point of fact, I think we need to look at this very broadly and ask ourselves the kind of contribution that women do make. You will find a person who has got a farm somewhere and who has even failed to get proper labor for that farm, and he is using his wife or wives and children to actually generate wealth on that farm. I do think that such a things that require to be quantified. And then when you look at that same page, there's a story at the bottom about a man who wanted his former wife's property.
That's on page 10 of the Daily Nation.
Shared with him equally. And we see that the courts rejected because they found that the property belonged to the woman rather than to him. It's also possible that some opportunistic hunters of fortune will get married to you today, and in a couple of months down the line, divorce proceedings are well on the way. And the question is, how much have they contributed to that? And if you're saying that in Limuri, your estates are worth so much, and you're getting into divorce, regardless of how much time you have taken previously to assemble that, be you a man or be you a woman, that your spouse goes away with half of that. I think let's have that debate.
Yes. The need for legislation in such matters, I don't know, because anyone could argue, as he said, you get married to someone and a few years down the line, 3 years, divorce happens, and then
Fred, you know,
who determines how much you brought?
What we did in Parliament last year was basically just expressing what has been happening in the courts. the courts have been using the same principle. The where a case comes to court about a lady or a man saying he or she is entitled to some property, the courts have been using common law to settle these matters. The courts have been saying, we'll check and see how much contribution has been made by either spouse. And the modalities of decision on what contribution is has also been left to the courts. The courts decide that we think that contribution will extend all the way to what Barack says. If the labor put by the lady in the farm, the labor put by the man in the hotel that the lady runs, can be quantified. The courts had been doing that for a long time. Now what the court wanted, what Parliament wanted to do this time around is to codify this, make this now a law that every court will follow, so that we don't have different courts making different judgments. And so there's nothing really wrong with saying that if there should be a case of this nature, then we will look at how much you contributed. And remember, even in that law, we secured something very important in the family. We secured the matrimonial home. We said in terms of the home of the family, they will go halfway. So this property you're talking about excludes the matrimonial home in the same law that we passed. So
the matrimonial home will be shared
50-50. And in fact, in fit cases, judges have basically asked the man to leave, so that the wife can yes, with the kids. And so the idea here, and of course there was a lot of uproar that time when we passed this law, but the idea was to make the family a unit living together. Yes. A setting of a country, so to speak. Yes. Not a venture for making money. Yes. Yeah, this is the idea really, so that you don't sit home and wait and hope that one of these days these things will happen, and then poof, you have a jackpot.
But some people will argue that some of these things that women contribute in a family cannot be quantified, so to speak, in terms of giving emotional support to the man when he goes out to get this property. Then isn't that the problem here, that women are saying that some of this, we do a lot more, but we cannot really say number 1, 2, 3, I cannot show.
Thank you. You are truly right. And as stipulated in Article 45 of the Constitution, which talks about aspects to the family, actually both parties enjoy equal rights. And it's true, when this matrimonial property bill, now as an act that was passed, it was just providing a basis, a framework, in case of the divorce. But speaking from the Christian point of view, just like what the Bible says, what God has put together, let no one do the separation. And it also says, we are together till death separates us. So from the Christian perspective, in a marriage, in a family, we don't anticipate separation. That is one thing from the Christian perspective. But when we legislate anticipating this, as Barack has clearly put it, we don't want this to be a commercial aspect. Women play a very, very critical role in the family. And the way the law is, whereby it says that people must share proportionately depending on your contribution, it is okay. Because we've seen some families where women have done most part of it. So it's the responsibility of the court in terms of interpretation to be able to quantify the level of contribution from each party. For instance, as politicians, my wife plays a very critical role as far as bringing up my children. If I'm up looking for votes, A, B, C, D, if you quantify her contribution, and when I'm going to look for the votes, I must have peace of mind. I'll only have peace of mind if my family is happy, my children are happy.
So do you agree it should be 50-50?
The proportionate aspects is what I want, not an issue of 50-50. Here, the level at which women have contributed, let's leave it to the court to interpret or to be able to apportion, to quantify. Because the assumption of FIDA is women's role, maybe you can have a housewife, you might think she's not contributing, but what I'm trying to put across is she's contributing so much. We have a theory, Maslow hierarchy of needs. When it comes to issues of basic satisfactions, let's say food, clothing, sex, you know, it is a basic need. So in other words, these are some of the needs you require before you go to other high-ranking needs. So when you look at Abraham Maslow, when you look at Maslow hierarchy of needs, for example, when it comes to the sexual aspect, is actually a basic need. So if you are quantifying the responsibility each party has contributed, particularly that satisfaction, you know, you quantify, it is very, very significant. That's true. No. I'm just trying to quantify this to tell you that indeed women are really contributing. And the way the law is okay. We are leaving it for the court.
We shouldn't change it.
No, we should not change it. We should not change it at all. And I'm just trying to say, even if you have a woman who is a housewife, she's contributing in terms of bringing up those children.
Isn't that what Phil is trying to do and saying, okay, fine, since we cannot really prove to what extent we actually contribute, then we just put it at 50-50, we share it equally.
No, the issue of 50, let me explain this. You know, there are many factors you look at when it comes to contribution. There's just direct and we have indirect. Just like when you're doing costing of any product, there's just direct cost and indirect cost. So you must look at the direct contribution and you must look at the indirect contribution. So it's your responsibility to be able to quantify. But I want to say that women are playing a very, very critical role. And we've seen some families whereby a man is also just there to provide support. So the issue of saying this, I don't like this, because you've seen some different unique families where a man or a woman is the one who is the breadwinner. So we leave it the way the law is.
Yes, thank you. I listen to my colleagues. I would like to enter it from another perspective and say that this approach from Peter, I think is good. But I think the assumption is that, and what they're assuming is that all women are not as wealthy as men. There's some situation whereby women are more wealthier than men. And as Barack is putting it clearly in the papers here, there's a man who wants to inherit his wife's property, house. The court is saying clearly, no, you can't do that. So in this case, actually men have been disadvantaged to some extent. The other thing is that there's this saying in the public that for a woman, what is hers is hers. What is the husband's is theirs. So you must take this debate further. First of all, open up, all of us, and agree to subject ourselves to the same measure when it comes to division of matrimonial property. The other issue is that what will be difficult in my view is to quantify the role of a woman and the role of the man, because some things are just unquantifiable. And divorce should not be anticipated. Of course, I know sometimes it will come, but it should not be one of the desired outcomes of a marriage. Marriage should be assumed is going to last for a lifetime. The other issue is that people talk about property so much about when it comes to marriage, but we all have different experiences. For example, if a man loses a spouse, like I did, property becomes irrelevant. Because you have lost somebody you loved so much, somebody who is irreplaceable. When it comes to division of property, in my case, for example, I have children from my late wife, and I have children from my current wife. So when it comes to division of property, there is my wisdom will come in. As the father and the head of this family, because that's what it calls for. Because my late wife made a contribution, whatever it was. She was a different profession. She was a teacher. My current wife is a lawyer. Of course, in terms of financial terms, they contribute differently. But when it comes from the family contributions, to me, I see as if they are both of them paid equal support to me. So I think what you should do is first of all improve our moral fabric as a community to ensure that people do live together. Because I know there's somebody went to hospital because he didn't have a toe, but on the way he met somebody without a leg. So when you talk about sharing property, and those people who have been widowed, is a very difficult situation. So I think to me the moral fabric of society is important, and we should not assume that women are always disadvantaged. And the truth is, the converse of it is this: the situation is that most women, they are more academically empowered men than women, and that's where this is coming. So in terms of also empowering the girl child to go to school, which is happening now, is another issue, so that people can be able to stand on their own.
But I wanted to say something.
Fred, wrap up on that.
It's come a long way, by the way. Where there's a time where women could not own property at all. Okay, and in this country we use most of the time we use the Married Women Property Act of India for almost 40-something years to decide these kind of cases. And so I wanted to feed the court guys the fact that we've come a long way in trying to secure the rights of the women. And this securing the rights of the women is incremental almost every day. And so what the courts have been saying is, and I agree with the courts, that you can't just sit there and come and say, I provide the emotional support. You cannot just sit there and say that, you know, when he was working hard, I was praying for him. I mean, you cannot say that. Yeah, but prayer is both sides, and you cannot monetize prayer. So the idea, what the court is saying, or what the law is saying, is that can we physically, can we in actuality sit down and quantify?
But then doesn't that disadvantage the person who doesn't go out to...
The idea, I mean, if you're in a family, you want to encourage hard work. You want to encourage everybody to do their best, really. And so the idea, and that divorce has a couple of stances. Divorce could be no fault. Divorce could be agreed. Divorce comes in so many ways. I mean, if it is, for example, death, which is unfortunate, then the law is very clear on how that's dealt with. But if it's divorce, then so many factors come into play, and that's what we're saying. The court should be able to consider what level of contribution did every spouse or each spouse in this situation make, and the court has a very wide discretion on saying that we think that in this case where, and the courts have decided severally before, that where Kivitu, the late Kivitu had a very grand case, court and all that, where the wife can prove that her matter of taking care of the children when the gentleman went out to work can be quantified. The courts have said they can quantify that. Yes. Okay? The courts have said they can quantify so many things in this whole setup.
But Muluka, I seem to agree with Bono Cheng. I'm seeing the sense now.
You see he's speaking from both ends of his mouth, because from one vantage point he's telling us that the family is actually a sanctuary. It's a sanctuary of peace. It's the place you retreat to when you have had your battles in the turbulent, rough world out there where you are trying to make a fortune. And when you come back home, you find this support that gives you the energy, the gusto to go out to face the world another day and to make more fortune. I think that's very important. If you are coming out from a troubled world and you're coming home and you're finding that it's another very disturbing terrain, you will find that very soon you cannot go very far. And that support that you enjoy from home, regardless that your wife doesn't go out to work with you and to labor and toil with you, she's making a very significant contribution that is making you who you are and what you are.
The argument is, should it be 50-50, or should we leave it to the court to decide how much contribution each spouse...
what about the cost of the divorce? If that
on the basis of...
What about the cost of the divorce? Allow me, Barak, if you don't mind. What about the cost of the divorce in that case? Is the lack of that support you're talking about.
But that support...
And you know that lack of that support is itself a ground for divorce.
But that's the point
about things like hostility. When
the law is
a hostile environment,
that it has to be 50-50,
and you can see that the wife can be very hostile, basically so that the marriage can end up in divorce. And then she ends up with
but that's the point.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
But in that case, the court has
50-50 can't work.
But that's the point. The court has to prove that.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And I think when you look at the Marriage Act, we have those provisions of divorce. And in this case, the court in its own wisdom, of course, if you look at what are the causes of that particular divorce. And from Honorable Barua's perspective, of course, they look at it based on what the cause. There are so many causes that lead to divorce, as outlined in the matrimonial, in the Marriage Act. But one thing I want to tell FIDA, they should tread carefully. I want to remind FIDA of, was it Honorable Gumo or Lawrence Ifuna? Some times back, I was still a young boy, where they said divorcees FIDA. I remember those statements those days.
Yes,
yeah, was it Gumo or Lawrence Ifuna? I think one of the two.
Yes.
And they should not come and polarize. We don't want people to start thinking that old way of thinking. Much that they are here to advocate for the rights of women, whatever it is, the way the Matrimonial Property Act, the way it is, to me it should be left that way, and should be a responsibility of the court to be able to determine the contribution. Because really, women, even if they are housewives, they contribute so much.
Yes.
As you go out there to look for business, to
But
look
not
for
all of them.
opportunities.
There are some who actually
No.
end up
I
costing the
just,
money.
I just mentioned Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Even sexual participation. You know, when you talk about basic need, it's something that you must have. Like now, if you didn't have your clothes, you wouldn't have come here to work. Clothing, when you look at that Maslow hierarchy of needs, clothing is there, education is there, sexual is there. So if a partner is there, even if he's not doing anything, when you quantify that sexual satisfaction that will give you a peace of mind to go out and work, the court in its own wisdom must look at that contribution. So
But
they are
it shouldn't be
contributing.
50-50.
The issue of 50-50 should not be the case.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be bringing anarchy.
As we wrap up that discussion.
Yeah, I'll be very quick and say that I'm reacting to Honorable Ocheng's mention of prayer. And I think, to me, it's not a very appropriate example. Because you have seen prayers really do work. Look at the case of ICC. We prayed so hard until the cases came out the way.
Was it really prayer that was to...
What I'm saying is that it is actually almost impossible to quantify some kind of participation.
It's not impossible.
I'm saying virtually almost impossible.
You can try, but not
you can try, but may not get accurate to quantify somebody's some certain emotional participation levels, because those are personal. The other issue is that if you agree to be in partnership with somebody, a man and a woman, you should have agreed on the rules of the game. Even if the woman doesn't work or the man doesn't work, you know that from the time you go into that relationship. So there's something that attracts you to to your partner. So you cannot come and say, now after 10 years my wife doesn't work, my husband is a drunkard. No, you have to bite the bullet. And for this case, me, I support the women. It should be 50-50. Yes.
Okay. That's why it says, you know, till death does us part.
Exactly.
Because when death parts you people, it's peaceable.
Yes.
But if the parting is artificial,
acrimonious,
then you cannot want to go. If the parting of
then the debate will continue. Of course, has already moved to court.
When death does you part, there are other fellows, some almost parasitic,
Of course.
For sure.
who come in.
a different thing altogether.
Of course, FIDA has moved to court, and we'll have to wait and see what the court will
Wish them
decide.
well, but something that was said, FIDA is not made of divorcees. FIDA is made of very respectable lawyers.
Yes.
Even men are allowed to join FIDA, and FIDA has done so much work in fighting for the rights of the women.
Okay.
And I think we should always see FIDA in that light.
It should be 50-50.
We should see FIDA in that light.
No, I think you're the one who said 50-50.
FIDA fights for so many things. It doesn't only fight for control of property. FIDA does so much
The
work
panel is
for the rest of the women.
3-1. You said 50-50. The
Yeah,
rest did not
50-50.
agree on
Yeah.
50-50. Okay.
And by the way, before we move out of the issue of FIDA, I'm the one who brought up the issue of the Gumo, and I remember Lawrence Sifuna. So we are saying FIDA should not open Pandora's boxes.
Yes.
We know what the critical role they are playing, and the way the law is, the way they are trading, it is like opening a Pandora's box. We don't want them to go there.
Okay.
But before you end up this issue, because Chris talked about some other support from which I don't want to, which I don't agree that in the basic level of need of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But I'm saying this: you don't have to say it's not 50-50, because when you divorce the woman, you can outsource the services she was giving from other women or from other people.
No. We didn't say that.
Now the debate is heading to a different direction. It's taking a tangent that we are not. Let's move on to other stories. And of course,
guy talking about
Nyeri County Governor Gachagua Gachagua's matter comes up in the Senate today. You remember what the Senate agreed last week, that this matter will not be handled by a committee of the Senate, but rather by the entire Senate. So today will be the chance for the MCAs to actually lay their case before the Senate, and the Director Gachagua himself will appear before the Senate tomorrow. Now, of course, in all this we are seeing that it has become like a lynch mob, where members of parliament, especially from that area, have all turned against the governor. The MCAs have turned against the governor. Now he's facing the entire Senate. Of course, we are lucky today because I know the Senate Speaker has gagged senators from discussing this matter, but here we have members of the National Assembly and political analysts. We can talk about it. Don't you think it is a lynch mob in this case?
My understanding of the way county government has worked so far, the observation, looking at MCAs who are honorable elected members, is that most of the time they have not governed themselves by what is good, consideration of what is good for the county. that most of the time it's about themselves pursuing certain selfish interests, and when that does not seem to be working, then they're always threatening the governor with impeachment. All the 47 governors live under the proverbial sword of Damocles, that it hangs very precariously above their heads, and that the MCS can cause it to descend any time. And today I think we are also seeing, particularly in the case of Nyeri and Central Kenya, elected members of the National Assembly who are also seeing a political opportunity here, that if you come and you become a lynch mob and you work on the Nyeri governor's case, you can use it to be seen as being pro-people. And I have seen some of the things they have said in the press and on social media, that this governor is unfriendly. What does friendliness have to do with it?
Yes, and of course, away from the queries raised in the Auditor General's report, because that has to be considered as well, these members of parliament have other complaints against the governor, and I believe this is the real story, because they accuse the governor of holding rallies in their constituencies with people who appear like they want to unseat the current members of the National Assembly. And definitely there's some level of politics that's just playing in this, and it's 2017 election politics.
Those definitely won't be factors to be considered by the Senate.
Yes.
And I wanted us to start on that basis. Let's not label it a lynch mob. We have a law that governs how the counties are run. We have a law that governs impeachment proceedings. We even have a law that provides for grounds upon which a person can be impeached. And so if we start on the basis that whenever you touch a governor, you're going to be lynching, then we're going to be encouraging impunity. Where there's a fit and proper case for MCS to intervene, let us allow them to intervene without labeling them as a lynch mob. Where there's a proper and fit case, let's allow Senate to do its job without labeling it as a lynch mob. So that we inculcate a culture of following the law where in proper and fit cases, and allowing the law to run its course. Of course, we're already entering a political silly season where so many things will happen. But I don't think that just because there's competition, we should look at things going on wrongly in a county and say, no, let's not do anything because we'll be accused of engaging in political witch hunt. No. And in this matter, I've been following it very keenly. I think the decision made by the Senate is a very good decision, because in the last 3-4 months we had a similar case again from Central Kenya, the case of Wa area of Muranga, and there were so many allegations against the committee, the 11-member committee of the Senate, about how well they didn't work and how they were influenced, those kind of things. And I think the decision that by the senators last week was that, look, we don't want our name being besmirched. We want to deal with this matter without having people thinking that people have done this or that. And I think I want to laud them for that. And I'm looking forward in my own view to seeing the Senate doing its job. And by the way, Fred, if you look at where these kind of things happen, Brazil, you saw last week when the president went through those proceedings. In America, these are solemn. These are very important proceedings. They're like the High Court proceedings. And I wish the Senate could approach them with the seriousness that they deserve. So that if anybody is hoping to earn political points from it, he's told, no, this is no way you're going to do your politics. If it's the governor who is trying to keep up emotions politically, then he's also told, you won't be able to do your politics. I would want to look at it that way.
But don't you think there's a risk when we, with this distrust within the Senate of its own committees?
Exactly.
Because now, if we were to draw a parallel with the National Assembly, and let's say you're supposed to vet someone who's nominated for a position in cabinet, and you decide that no, the committee is not capable of doing that, then let's vet them in the plenary, in the chambers, in front of everyone, 290 members. How does that work?
Yeah, I think it is unfortunate that the Senate could not trust the committee itself. That is very wrong from that point of view. It is true, when a matter has come through Parliament, it's always good to put a small committee in place to look into the nitty-gritties, to look at it comprehensively, and do a report to the plenary. So when you come to the plenary, you move that report, you have to highlight on the key issues. But in the long run, the plenary has can veto whatever the committee has put across. So really, it's very unfortunate that they could not trust. But when I try to engage some of them, they say in the public domain, it is assumed that when there's a small committee, it is easy to compromise them. And we've seen so many proceedings of impeaching these governors, starting from Wairia, starting from Wamboras of this world. You know, people are being Wambora'd, but Wambora is outside there smiling. So people have been asking, really, can this Senate exercise their powers? And I'm hoping that they're not going to take the advantage of Gachagua, because they've never impeached anyone successfully, to be able to demonstrate to the Kenyans that this is a new thing. What I want to say is the impeachment process is a quasi-judicial process. And they must look at the facts the way they come. The must is based on the law. So really what is supposed to be done, and as I've been saying earlier on, is that the Constitution has checks and balances. Whatever the County Assembly has come up with, it has to be checked by the Senate. The Senate is not a kangaroo court. It's supposed to look at the proceedings the way they were, and the reports the way it was debated, what violation of the law has Nderitu Gachagua done. And as they bring their submissions, they are free to be cross-examined. And today, as you're going to wait for the County Assembly to come, they'll come with their counsel. As they do the presentations, they can also be cross-examined. And Governor Nderitu Gachagua is also free to attend those proceedings as he prepares a defense. My worry is, if it's going to be the whole plenary, then when the report comes, it should be passed anonymously. Why we have checks and balances is to give a priority to the select committee, and the select committee, as it brings the report, is going to be checked by the entire plenary. So the disadvantage here is this: as the committee brings the report now turned into plenary, then there will be no point to debate. Because it's the same thing now.
The assembly can also say, we are also coming as the assembly.
Absolutely.
But that's the way it should be, because the committee works for the plenary. The reason they made the decision last week is that the law allows it, that the committee is only formed for the convenience of the House. Otherwise, the job should be done by the plenary.
And
it's
by
not
the way,
anomaly. It's not something that is abnormal. That's what the law provides.
No, what I'm trying to say, what I want to bring the difference, I was the one on the floor, I've not finished. You look at the standing orders of the Senate. The standing orders of the Senate, mind that it talks about appointing that committee, but it's not shall. The word was not shall, will. So that means the discussion of the Speaker in this case, so and the plenary, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. At the same time, the plenary can also be turned into a committee. Like with the way you do legislation, when it comes to the committee of the whole House. You see, the entire plenary is being turned into a committee. So there's nothing wrong whatever they have done.
Isn't there a risk, because we've seen how these houses work and how politicians generally work and how lax they are when it's the committee of the whole House, including the National Assembly, and you need to pass something and you don't even have quorum. And out of 290 members, sometimes it's even hard to get 20 members in Parliament.
349. Actually 349.
349, yes. And getting even 20, 25 members in the House is a problem. If that is how you're going to, the Senate is going to handle this. And you know, there's something that Bwana Cheng said, that this politics, Nyeri town, Nyeri county politics will not come into play in the House. Remember, senators are here, and some of these senators want to ascend to governorship.
I said they shouldn't.
Yes, I think let me make my contribution on this and say that the law allows for the whole House to act as a committee. But what is coming out clear in this is that the House of the Senate has lost confidence in that committee. So instead of dealing with the committee, they are getting alternatives of going around it. That's the problem. I think that the Senate owes the Kenyans an explanation into what made the Senate lose confidence in itself and in that committee.
But there's no standing committee.
They were to form a committee.
They were to form one, so there's no standing committee.
For convenience.
Let me finish. Why it has actually lost confidence in itself? Why it cannot actually appoint a committee from amongst their members to actually look at the issues of Gachagua of Nyeri. They have done it for Ambora, they have done it for Kibuda Kibwana, and also for Mwangi Wairia. The other issue I would like to say...
Does it mean therefore that Gachagua, the governor for Nyeri, can actually move to court and say, I was not treated the same way as my peers were?
No, he can't do that. The issue here is the Senate losing confidence on its membership. That you cannot extract a committee from a membership to agree on this, to discuss these issues. The other issue is, which I want to bring because you mentioned it, is that first and foremost devolution is working because money is actually going to the local communities. But the way things are happening in the House of Parliament and the county assemblies, that there's a problem. The county assembly is supposed to professionally and objectively oversight the executive. If that function is played the way it's supposed to be done, issues of corruption will be there without being compromised. That one is not happening. The House of Parliament is also supposed to oversight the national executive. I don't know that I'm a member, so I'm here to be judged. But if those two levels of government, the House of Parliament and the county assemblies, really do their work, then you can be able to address all these ills if you do it objectively. The other thing on governance, because you mentioned it, I think the next crop of governors which is coming, they will start from a point of knowledge. The first crop of governors started from a point of denial and deceit. They thought that they become small presidents in the counties, they cannot be questioned by anybody, and they can actually use their powers and money to actually politically demolish the members of parliament because they are potential threats. Now they have realized that it is not possible because members of parliament and MCs and the senators and MPs have also got their powers too.
They are
members of National Assembly. Everyone.
Yeah, but I want to finish.
He's taking too much time.
Yes, but I want to finish this point. I want to say that these people, governors who are coming like Chris Omaro, and who is running for Trans Nzoia, I wish him well. They should come and form partnerships with other leaders. A governor who does not form partnerships is not worth being a governor.
Isn't it the fact that the position of a governor is perhaps the most lucrative going into 2017, and that's why everyone is trying to unseat the incumbents right now?
There's an extent to which Mheshimiwa Barua is right about the clout around the governor and the attractiveness of that position. And I think we are going to see very many people coming out, and I don't impute any improper motives on the part of my friend Mheshimiwa Chris. But it is true that there are many people who want to be governors because they've been left there with their resources that nobody can interrogate, and they do anything that they want. You see them roaming on in the countryside, motorcades and all that. But that notwithstanding, I think certain things must be said. When what seems to be the last straw in the Nderito Gachagua case is that he has been holding meetings in the county, in the constituencies, with people who seem to be like they are going to be running against their opponents, sitting MPs. I think something is totally faulty here. First, the governor is on the ground, and these aspirants are also on the ground. When you are here and the governor is doing his things in the county, invariably some of these people are going to be there, and so you cannot use that as a ground to begin addressing his issue. Then when it comes to the committees that are put in place from time to time, whether they are standing committees or they are ad hoc committees, they are an expression of the confidence that the legislature has got in itself. And when the legislature is saying that we cannot trust any our own committees, then I think something is decidedly wrong with that legislature. And here we do come to a point where, as we said earlier, that in fact the Nyeri County Assembly can also say we are also coming as plenary, that this plenary meets the other plenary. The role of the committees in distilling issues so that we get to the nitty-gritty of the concerns is very important. When you put all these people together, we are going to gloss over issues, and like it or not, it can very easily degenerate into the rule of the mob.
Before we leave the story, I think something that Honorable Barrow was alluding to. You know, this whole system of governance called devolution is a new system. Okay? And we've never tried these kind of things that happen today. I think we keep learning new things every day, and we hope that over time we can perfect the best way to go about these things. I think for me, I think that's what the player always had, that even the governors who are doing their jobs now are the first governors. You can call them our guinea pigs. So we hope that then the lessons are being learned now can be concretized, so that in the next dispensation you can have a better way of doing things. I think for me, I would want to just leave it at that.
Okay, and of course, what representatives have accused the governor of irregular procurement processes, misuse of funds, and failure to appoint enough executives, and also failing to assent to the 6.4 billion county budget. We need to take a short break. Of course, the MCAs will appear before the Senate today to present their bit of the story, and of course Governor Gachagua will have his day before the Senate tomorrow on Wednesday. We'll now take a short break. We'll be back because we need to discuss Ford Kenya politics, and of course Bona Chris Omalo will give us a blow-by-blow account, literally, of what is happening within Ford Kenya. So we'll be right back.
Tomato sauce ever. Ginger, the best tomato sauce ever. Canned tomato sauce. Canned tomato sauce. Canned tomato sauce. Canned tomato sauce. Mom, is it canned tomato sauce or is it canned tomato sauce?
They never agree on anything, but at least they know canned sauces are the best.
Canned sauces are made from the freshest, juiciest, and healthiest ingredients picked from the richest farms in the country.
Enjoy pure freshness from every bottle of canned tomato sauce.
It's canned tomato sauce.
Have you listened to Hot 96 FM recently? We're the only station that plays timeless hit music from across genres. R&B, the 90s, African. Turn it on and find out what you're missing. Hot 96, all-time hits.
Hot 96.
Today is like every day. You wake him up, you get him ready, you watch him run off. Today is like every day until 7:02 when he writes his name for the first time. And you feel amazing knowing you got it right with Scott's Emulsion. It contains vitamin D to support bone growth, vitamin A to support the body's natural defenses, and DHA supporting brain function. A spoonful every day to help kids grow strong, bright, and healthy. Feel amazing every day with Scott.